The Darkness' greatest hit broke rock rules and struck a major chord, throwing aside the omnipresent hard rock minor scale to forge an instant upbeat falsetto classic. Leaping off the vinyl grooves of their 2003 debut album Permission to Land, I Believe in a Thing Called Love is a 4-minute ode to rock and roll joy that almost magically uses major key chords to create minor key mayhem. Today, on Why Do We Like, I'll be using my decades of experience as a musician and guitarist to break down not just the major key magic of this beloved banger, but to dive deep on every bit of the incredible musicianship, the vocals, the guitar, the drums, the bass, and even the humor that makes this masterpiece and this band tick.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
Founded in the year of our Lord 2000 in the Anglo enclave of Lowestoft, England, The Darkness is a throwback rock band consisting of members Justin Hawkins, his brother Dan Hawkins, and fellow musicians Frankie Poulain and Ed Graham. Even before the breakout success of their debut album, Permission to Land, the band had developed a devoted following thanks to their raucous live show. They would go on to be known for their incredible showmanship throughout their careers, only elevating their theatrics in success, doing things like putting Justin Hawkins aback a white tiger as he soared across venues, shredding out solos, and belting out falsetto. Though surrounded by incredible musicians, Justin Hawkins was the clear auteur of the band, elevating their classic rock style with inventive guitar work, extremely unique vocals, and hooky songwriting that he had honed in his previous years as a jingle writer. In fact, I think Justin's jingle writing pedigree is a critical but easy to overlook element of the band's success. Why? Jingles are a songwriting crucible, forcing a composer to create as hooky a tune as possible, as quickly as possible, and often with as few elements as possible. This is a genre that over-rewards earworm construction, and honing one's chops in this world is a surefire way to develop hook skills rivaling that of an urban legend. Justin and Co. showcased these skills brilliantly on their debut album, Permission to Land, which launched in 2003 to great success, eventually netting Brit Awards for Best Group, Best Rock Act, and even Best Album.
And the winner of the MasterCard British album is... what is it? Oh my god, it's Permission to Land, The Darkness.
Brilliant, 3 Brits in total.
Thanks, ScarJo. But trouble struck after this crackerjack release, seeing bassist Poulain leave and the elder Hawkins Justin go to rehab for cocaine and alcohol abuse. With their next album, the hilariously titled One Way Ticket to Hell, and Back, the group tried to recapture the magic of Permission, only for lackluster sales to lead to Atlantic dropping the band and their eventual dissolution. It's been a rocky road since then, with the band splintering, reassembling, and more, but one underlooked gem in this fracas is Justin's work on the criminally overlooked group Hot Leg. Once you're done here, I really recommend you check out their tunes I've Met Jesus and Cocktails, both of which are definitely better than you would ever expect them to be, and definitely better than their weird song titles might imply. They both have killer guitar work and remain part of my song rotation to this day. But today's track, I Believe in a Thing Called Love, was the standout track of a standout album, enduring to this day as a karaoke favorite, and appearing in everything from feature films like Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates to national commercials starring no less a likeness than the omnipresent Taylor Swift herself. The track's release was accompanied by a downright incredible music video that showed The Darkness' acumen for pastiche extended beyond simply songwriting. This video is a laugh riot, with a fun, English, piss-taking sensibility. It's evocative of classic, low-budget sci-fi flicks like Plan 9 from Outer Space and the original Star Trek series, like the iconic chintzy moment when Kirk fights the Gorn lizard dude that's clearly a stuntman. The video also, The Darkness' video, also embraces its knowing weirdness in a very cool, like Fifth Element type way. So, without further ado, let's kill 2 Woodstock doves with 1 glam rock stone and see why we like this transcendent major-minor mishmash of a track. so the great part about guitar is that it is on a grid. You don't have to know a single thing about music theory to understand how to play guitar, as long as you understand shapes.
Ta-da! See that, Bert? That is a circle.
Okay, so as I touched on in my Megalovania breakdown too, pretty much every classic rock track, both classic as in old and classic as in iconic, is built on the pentatonic scale, at least in its bones. So what is that? These are the 5 notes basically guaranteed to sound good, and it's pretty much always minor pentatonic. So here's what that sounds like in E, which is the key of this song, as well as the key of pretty much every classic rock song, because in E, all of the open strings work. Anyway, here's E minor pentatonic. You can also do the same thing, bring it up a whole octave, same notes, just higher up. Now, this is where the beauty of the grid system comes into place. You can play the major version, the major pentatonic, by playing the exact same shape and just sliding it down 4 frets. So 1, 2, 4. Still playing this as our bass note E. Exact same shape. Right there, pretty simple. There are different notes, but the difference between major and minor pentatonic, at least in terms of how you play it, is vanishingly small. Major is classically more sort of upbeat, more good vibes, and minor is a little more dark and rockin'. And these things, these are very subjective. These are the terms that we sort of bring to our experience of music, but they do have an objective difference in their sounds, in the way that their notes relate to their tonic note. And it's super hard to make major key stuff sound minor and rocking. I have tried it a lot myself, and I have never made it work. There's a reason that all of the big, iconic, classic rock solos are pretty much in minor pentatonic. I mean, you've got Slash's Sweet Child of Mine, the variant of that pure minor pentatonic riff, or a little bluesy in there, a little blues action. We just add that one note, this flat fifth into the minor pentatonic scale. Also, this is how Jimmy Page does the Stairway to Heaven solo. That pretty much all pentatonic there as you go. Even the Back in Black main riff, pentatonic, minor pentatonic, simple as it goes. Boom. Minor pentatonic, which is why it's so interesting that Justin Hawkins and the crew in the Darkness were able to make this major pentatonic thing sound so rocking. So sort of as a test for this, what I've done is I've taken the main 2 riffs from the verse and the chorus, and I've transposed them into the minor key. And tell me if this sounds any worse. Hint, it probably will. I don't like that at all. I think that sounds terrible, but that is how you would play that in the minor key. We're kind of trying to fit a round peg into a square hole here, playing something with certain notes meant to be played a certain way, another way. But it's also not uncommon to transpose things, to just transform them musically from one key into another. And here, it sounds like hot garbage. I don't know what a good minor version of this would be, which is why it's so impressive that the major version still has that minor rockin' sound. Anyway, here's the other riff in that vein. Gross. You hear that? Blah. It's really just gnarly to the ear, and I think all the more impressive that using just these couple of notes, here these major notes, you can make something that still sounds rockin'. I think it's super impressive. It's something that I could not do myself. Like I said, I've tried a lot to write stuff in major. Never works. Not for me. I'm a minor key guy. There are also a couple of notes in each of the solos, figuratively and literally, that do these cool touches that combine major and minor and show the sort of play that this song is working with. So the first solo, it's more just like a lead line. It's super quick. It's this. Okay, that is very classic major, except for that last note. The last note, if you're playing it purely major, would be this. Small difference, you're just bending up. You're still ending on the same note, which is you're ending on in E. We're in the key of E. But it just sounds a little more rockin'. It's a little more classically rock tropey if you do it on the minor note, which is a flat 7th instead of a 7th is the term for it. But it's just that. you just get more stank out of like a whole tone bend, which is what you get when you're in the minor scale. So it's a cool little touch, already shows this kind of major minor interplay we're going for here, and it's just at the first solo. The second solo is also great. There's less mixing and matching. There's one little outside note that comes in there that this open note here, the G. That is not supposed to be there. That's a minor key note. So that's a nice little sort of imposition bringing in from the other scale, but you also have the end, this note, this first bend, that's not supposed to be in there. Again, that is a little more blues, that's major blues, but this note here too, not supposed to be in there either. Great way to add in some dissonance by pulling these notes from outside of the major scale, in this case major pentatonic, to spice things up a little bit. And then this thesis here is sort of fully developed at the final solo. The final solo, easily the best solo in the track, starts out 100% in minor pentatonic. It plays a classic minor pentatonic riff. This. Oh, that is just like ripped from the book of minor pentatonic lickery. Super cool, very smart, very rockin'. And because we've reached the end here, we're doing this whole big rock ending, and you've got to go minor pentatonic for that, because that is the classical case. Those are the sounds, the notes you use when you're going for this feeling. But what's really cool is right after that, we switch from E minor back into E major with this fun little pedal tone walk-up thing. Those are all major notes. All major notes, and then he pulls from that first solo with this last bend, that is a minor bend. Not in the sense that there's anything different between the bends, but we're starting from a minor note. So from the beginning, we've developed this idea. We have this major rock that sounds minor. We have these elements in the solos. We have a couple of notes here and there that add that minor stank, that minor dissonance, which is this feeling of sort of like grit and tension that is so endemic to rock music. Then for this last solo, we pull the mask off. We go full minor pentatonic before switching back to major, bringing it home, and then ending with that last bend of minor. Throughout the song, this major key emphasis with minor key interplay is one of the smart, unique choices that make the song stand out as a success, both for its kind of hard-hewn simplicity and its paradoxical tonal play. Justin Hawkins rules. Okay, now to break down the song into its elements, piece by piece. So, first of all, unsurprisingly, is the vocals. In a song and a band with many unique elements, it will forever be the one-of-a-kind vocals that sets their work apart. Justin Hawkins is a falsetto master, but even more important than that, he's an absolutely fearless one. It's one thing to be able to simply execute a thing. The world is filled with plenty of shy talents whose greatness will never be known. But it takes a rarer soul to have the courage to let their weird talents shine bright and let their freak flags fly. And Justin Hawkins is that weird soul to the nines. The vocal lines here are great hooks in melody alone, but it's Justin's execution of them that makes them so sticky in our minds. I've yet to come across someone who won't respond to a name dropping, "I believe in a thing called love," with their own version of, "Just listen to the rhythm of the heart." Like, it's incredible, and it just sticks with you to this day. And one of the great things about this track's vocals is that even though it feels like Hawkins is holding nothing back throughout the choruses, he's getting so high as he sings the song, he still saves his highest notes for the song's climax, ascending to absolutely stratospheric pitches as everything comes together in the final moments. So I touched on the guitar some, obviously in this past section where I was playing the guitar, but let's take a little extra time to break it down in particular. The song's riff here is incredible. It starts off with just this instant hook. It's a classic lo-fi, they sort of roll back the high end, and it sounds like you're listening to it on an old-time radio, and then it kicks in, and it kicks in hard. Repeats a couple times, and it finds its perfect variation for the main riff of the chorus. Just this slight switch up of the jam we've already come to know and come to understand, and it's just endlessly repeatable, and it's even fun to play. The first solo is great, the entire series of solo are great, but this first one is short and sweet. Plays a couple little lead lines, it gets us there, and we keep moving, it builds momentum. This second solo is even better. There's some simple pentatonic goodness. This is all major key like I discussed, and it ends with these little double stops broken up by a little pentatonic line in there too. This is a really fun build. This solo tells a story. It's easy in a lot of these sort of rocky tunes to get pretty wanky with it. I know I can be guilty of this. It's fun to just have fun on the guitar. It's a lot harder to sort of roll that back and use your chops to tell a little musical story as you go. This is great. This is the second stop in a 3-solo journey, and it's kind of the perfect interlude in that way. And then, of course, this final solo, as I've also touched on as well. This final solo just fucking rips. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is really get your head banging for this big rock ending. Justin Hawkins takes a sort of classic minor pentatonic blues riff, runs through that from bottom to top to bottom, and then he jumps back into this cool pedal tone major key run. That's what pedal tone is, where you keep playing a sort of single home bass note in between all the other notes you're playing. Here that's E, we're in the key of E. And as he's building up on this top string, on your high E string, playing all the major key notes before that one final bend, back on a minor key note to just have that little bit of extra hard rock stank to it. It's great, and we feel at home the whole way. We're never thrown when we're jumping between major and minor because we're always in E, and we're always playing such sort of simple, big chords. That's one of the benefits of living in the simplicity of these sort of classic pentatonic scales, is that because there's not a lot to them, 5 notes versus 7 notes, switching between them, as long as you're doing it intelligently and doing it musically, is a lot sort of more subtle to the ear. It happens, it's more natural, and we don't notice anything weird. We're just nicely surprised by a little variation in the sounds we've come to expect. And then, it's not a solo per se, but we end on this badass classic big rock ending that That's great, that's fun, that's what this song needed to have. Like, it's just this slow build. It starts big, but it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we end on those sick final notes before the drums like shigadunk and get us out of there. Last up, we have the backing. We've got the bass and the drums. The bass here is just fucking stalwart. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, and that's fine. There's lots of doubling of the guitar parts. It's basically playing the notes from the guitar, just an octave down. That's what a lot of good bass does anyway. It's simple, but it works. And there's a lot of room to innovate here, and this song doesn't go too crazy with it. I love when songs do find ways to get crazy without sounding crazy. But that's not what this song really called for either. There's a couple moments, like around the 58-second mark and 138, when you go a little off the line. We go a little off of what the guitar is playing, and it just adds a little bit of spice to the song in a way that makes you constantly perk your ears up. You maybe don't notice you're hearing it because the bass is pretty low in the mix, but you do notice that maybe you're feeling a little different. You're having a good time, and that's exactly what bass should do in a track like this. The drums, frankly, are even simpler in this track. They're great, they're simple, they're tight, they go like clockwork, and that's also what you want. I mean, the most important thing for your drums to do is keep time, and if we listen to the isolated track, these drums are perfectly on time. It is really, you could set your watch to this thing. There's a couple of small things going on behind the scenes here, but the beats that are being played aren't anything crazy. I think pretty much any drum student after a couple of months of practice could really pick this up. But the other touches that make it great are the hi-hats. The hi-hats are opening up throughout the song. So they start super close, super tight lips. And you hear that's like, which is great for what the song is trying to establish. That's a much less high energy feeling. What happens is, as the song goes on, once you get to the first solo, the second solo, the third solo, the hi-hat opens up a little bit more. It builds from this to this much more sibilant. And what that does is build this sense of energy, build this sense of tension. That's what a hi-hat is good for. The sort of more open it gets, the more you have this ring from it, the more it rings out, and that sound is constantly keeping you going from beat to beat to beat to beat. It's a really cool move. It's simple. It's a rudiment in a lot of ways, but it's exactly what they do here, and it's exactly what needed. It works. Beyond that, nothing too crazy to remark upon. I love the moment and the sort of final pre-chorus where it drops out and you get just the bass drum and the snare, the boom tap, boom tap, boom tap. It's another classic rock and roll move that really just heightens the energy. You know this is a build for something big, and so dropping everything out really helps build your anticipation as we get to this final big rock ending, this final big rock solo. Like I said, this is one area where I maybe would have liked to see a little bit more experimentation. There's so many other elements of this song that just exude play. This is a fun song. This is filled with this like fuck about glee. I would have liked to see more of that here. Obviously, drums and bass are often relegated to the background. They're literally called the backing of a track. Because of that, it's easy to let them sort of fall by the side, just do their thing, and not go too far beyond it. I think that's largely what happens here, but that's also not really a demerit. If you do your job and do it well, you've done your job, and that's kind of all that's needed. But I think creative drum touches are something that can have outsized value for a band like this. Actually, Fall Out Boy is a great example of this. I always bring it up when I listen to their songs, but they have incredible songwriting. They were, doing fine either way. But the drums always go so much harder than they ever needed to, and I really think it helps their songs stand out. As a listener, that's the kind of stuff that you notice, maybe consciously, but maybe just subconsciously. But it perks your ears up. There's a novelty to it, but it's within this safe and understandable framework, and that's the sort of thing that just gets our dopamine firing. That's the stuff that we like to hear in our music. We're 4 videos into Why Do We Like, and despite not yet analyzing an outright comedy yet, literally every single work that I've looked at here has some unique comic element to it, some part of comic sensibility built into it. Sometimes it's hidden and more Trojan horsed in there, as in Scream, when others tout it very proudly and wear it on their Italian sleeves like Super Mario RPG. With this song, with this band, and in this video, we have another complete embodiment of humor within a piece, in a way that I think is actually quite smartly done because it makes it so accessible. Despite being unavoidably hilarious, glam rock, which is what a lot of this song is based on, what a lot of the Darkness' style is based on, did not have a sense of humor, at least not by default. It was extremely earnest in its presentation of the glam rock lifestyle, and while that is commendable, it can also be pretty off-putting to a listener who isn't fully bought in. Like you're watching someone with this crazy, leopard print, massive scarf, they've got a V-neck down to their crotch, and you're just like, oh, they mean this sincerely? Yikes. But as the Darkness do, when you add this kitschy levity to it, there's this layer of ironic detachment and self-awareness that makes it a lot easier to engage with, to take hold of, to have fun with. It's saying, we're doing something silly, but we're gonna take it very seriously. But we still know how silly it is. And stuff like that invites a viewer in, it invites a listener in. And I think in a piece like this, which is so unbridled in its joy and enthusiasm, that self-awareness can also give us the permission, not just to land, but to let loose and to have fun with it. We're doing something silly, but we're not doing it for reals, says the brain. And when you pull all that together, when you pull all of that off, I think you can understand why almost every listener loves to belt out the lyrics of this song along with it as it goes. Like I said, you can't tell a friend that you believe in a thing called love without them responding to just listen to the rhythm of the heart. That's just the way it goes. They've left their mark on pop culture. Truly, I don't think there's a more ubiquitous high note that the average Joe will try to hit either, except for maybe in Bohemian Rhapsody, that squeal that takes us into the headbang section. And it's no coincidence that Bohemian Rhapsody shows a lot of similar traits as I Believe in a Thing Called Love. One could not exist without the other. Sometimes you gotta walk before you can crawl, and here we had to rhapsodize before we could believe. Warning, in this humor section, I do think ironic detachment is a vastly overrated and overused device in modern society and culture. The thing to be aware of is that it just kind of lets us have our cake and eat it too, lets us consume things that we may disapprove of in certain ways, but also by masking that in a sense of irony. I know in my part, half the shit that I say now sincerely, I started out saying ironically, slang like lit or dope. I did not understand when I first sort of came to my ears, but then I began to work it in, and it was done with a little bit of a wink, and now I just talk like that. And that's a pretty harmless example for the most part, but it's an important reminder of the mechanism of how it works. Like once we do start engaging with these things ironically, it's easy to forget how we maybe felt about them originally, and if we do feel about something sincerely, again, this applies to bigger issues than just like slang, it's something to be aware of. Anyway, smarter minds than me have tried to suss this out. I'm basically just giving you the bargain basement version of David Foster Wallace's E Unibus Plurum, or, the more contemporary Bo Burnham. But my point is simply, it's a lot harder and a lot cooler to be sincere.
Irony can be so painful.
So, irony responsibly. Iron responsibly? Ironicize responsibly? Apparently there's no commonly accepted word in English for this, so let's just move on. Back to the topic of humor at hand. Is there a term for the constellation of funny things that the darkness is and that they're trying to do with the humor in this track? It turns out, yes, there is a word for this. My Scream video touched on the delineations between the rhetorical modes of parody versus satire versus deconstruction, but it left out the last one of the bunch, pastiche. This is a pastiche. What a pastiche is an imitation of the style of other works in a way that's done as a tribute, not as a takedown. So when you look at it this way, I Believe in a Thing Called Love is very much a pastiche. It is an homage, a loving homage to the classic and glam rock styles, not a mockery of them. They're engaging with it fully. What sets it apart is this earnestness, and it's evident from the song's entire tone and vibe. This is a celebration. We are just here to have a good time, damn it. Just ask the dancing bear thing. You're behind the steering wheel. And it's not just this song either. The entire album, the entire band, embody this sense of humor, from the songs to their construction to the titles themselves. Going beyond just the confines of this track on Permission to Land, I simply have to shout out both Growing on Me and Holding My Own, two other similar tunes with similar sensibilities. The first one, Growing on Me, is a classic sort of new love type song. I've just found you and we're falling for each other. It is also just an incredibly extended double entendre about a case of worsening herpes. And the latter one, Holding My Own, being a classically titled power ballad. You think it's about living one's own life and moving on, but Holding My Own is also just a double entendre for grabbing your dick.
Another one. Another one. Another one.
In terms of relistenability, I would rate this infinity. To me, this is a song that is impossible to get tired of. It's 4 minutes of power-packed rock and roll. It does not overstay its welcome, and it's always injecting these elements of novelty to keep you interested while never getting too crazy. There's enough familiarity for it to neatly keep it in a box in your head. Wrap all that in rock and roll virtuosity and self-aware levity, and you won't just have a track that's a welcome addition to a go-to playlist, but one that will always spark delight when the gods of randomness shuffle it to the top of your queue. After all this, how can one not believe in a thing called love? In the darkness, they carved a rainbow shiv out of gleeful musicality and stabbed it straight into the hearts of 2000s pop culture. They crafted a song that entered the most rarefied of musical airs, that of a timeless classic, one that offers its own unique musical major key twist while sounding nothing but superbly listenable to any music fan. This is a song that is brash, that is memorable, and that is so striking that you can't help but harken back to earlier listens of it, earlier moments that it colored whenever you take it in anew. It's a song that was born out of time, 2 decades too late, yet somehow right on time, and that almost mystifyingly managed to be a high watermark for a band whose works, on and off, have continued to this day. As so often happens, it was a freshman flash in the pan, part of an even bigger bang that was Permission to Land, and it was fueled by the amazing, hooky musicianship of Justin Hawkins and the lockstep rock and roll musicality of his bandmates, the coming together of great minds to do an even greater thing, leaving their mark not just on the moment, on the year, but on the timeline of modern music itself. Why do we like this one-of-a-kind track? Because it achieved not only a technical feat of major key mayhem, but an even more impressive philosophical one. It took even our most hardened, cynical, post-grunge hearts, and it opened them up to something almost impossible. It made us believe.